So, Kevin, was it difficult for you to write this? That you took this bold direction where you have a protagonist who is in upstate New York, plays basketball, and becomes a teacher. And was this difficult for you to write?
So, Mystery Road was had a funny genesis. Um, it actually, believe it or not, it actually came from a dream. I had a recurring dream about this house out in the woods that I had some connection with. Like it's like I knew the person who was there. I didn't recognize them, but I knew that I had been there before. And when I woke up, it's one of the very few dreams. Like, I mean, writers talk about this all the time, where they'll have a great dream and they'll wake up and they'll be like, I couldn't remember it. I couldn't write about it. But I just stuck with me with this house in the woods. So that was where it started. But yeah, the novel is super personal, um, or the novella actually. So I have found that over the years, um, when I first started writing horror, and most of the stories and things slip through, while I think they are good stories, I was very consciously, ooh, here's the Wendigo story. Here's the woman in white story. Here's the Dagon story. Here's the Cthulhu story. Here's the Mothman story. Here's the evil doctor slicing people up story. So a lot of those stories were really tropey. Somewhere along the line, I really realized that the stories that I really wanted to write were meaningful to me. Like they came from me. So, Devourer of Souls, my second book, really pulled a lot of stuff from my memories of being a kid in the summer, my memories of the Man in Yellow, and my memories of being in VBS and things like this. Which for those of you again who are not familiar with Baptist nomenclature, VBS stands for.
Look at you, Tom.
What's that?
Look at you, Tom. Me and Tom such friends.
VBS stands for Vacation Bible School. So,
You're not the one Baptist church. I got it.
right. So I really realized that personal stories are what meant the most. So when I started crafting Mystery Road, I really started thinking about myself as a kid. There was a trailer park right up the road from me that had this basketball court that nobody went to. And I discovered it, and I would get on my bike and I would ride there every single day with my basketball in my backpack and with my water bottle. And I would just sit there and shoot forever. So that part is ripped definitely from my life. I don't know as a 14-year-old if I was as discontented with basketball as Kevin Ellison seems that he is. That really comes more from my sophomore year in college. When I was playing basketball, basketball had been my life. Um, I have always had bad feet, so by my sophomore year in college, my feet were really, really. I mean, I only played JUCO college and Division III college basketball, but it's still a pretty aggressive schedule. So by my sophomore year, my feet were really hurting, and I knew that there's got to be more to basketball, or there's got to be more to life than just basketball. And that's ironically when I first started writing my first short stories. So as a 14-year-old, I was totally in love with basketball. But that discontent that Kevin Ellison feels in Mystery Road is really mined from when I was a sophomore in college. Really feeling like I've dedicated my whole life to basketball. There's got to be something a little bit more here. I think I referenced a element in that story about my dad and I finding skinned dogs in the woods. That literally happened.
Gross.
Yeah, my dad and I discovered these dead skinned dogs in the woods, and I asked my dad about this recently, and he said, "Yeah, there was a whole thing right around that time where the police were finding from Harpersville to Deposit to Afton, people were skinning dogs and doing occult practices out in the woods." So we actually did find that. I do have to say that the father is a fabrication. My dad was an engineer, so in Mystery Road, making my dad an English teacher who I wanted to follow in his footsteps, that was a little bit of a fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those delicate things. Do I imagine my father's going to watch this video? I don't know. My dad and I
Did he
had a
subscribe?
Was that?
Did he subscribe?
No, I would imagine not. My dad.
One away. Come on.
My dad and I had an okay relationship growing up. But my dad and I were very different. My dad was an engineer. He was very much into physics and math, and he was a very logical thinker. I was not. My favorite story when I tell people about the difference between my dad and I is when I was 14. My dad came in the bedroom and said, "Okay, I'm changing the spark plugs in the distributor cap. You need to come out here and watch me so you know how to do this." And my response was, "But I'm not done with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe yet." So, in some ways...
Now, hey, Kevin, I'm going to be the interviewer. Do you think that factored into the father's relationship with his stepmother? Because there is a vibe there of that.
Yeah.
Do you think that factored in?
Not only did that factor in, and again, on the rare chance that my dad watches this, my relationship with my mom was not good. I'll just keep it really simple in that my mom loved me. My mom took care of me. My mom sacrificed for me. But having a dreamy-eyed son who loved comic books, who dreamed of being a writer, who, for his Christmas list every year, the only thing he had on his Christmas list was a list of books that he wanted. She didn't understand that. And I don't, she is no longer with us, so I don't want to speak ill of the dead. So I won't give any details. But Mom and I had a very tense relationship. And it was kind of the idea where I knew she loved me, but she didn't get me. And again, I apologize to my father if he actually watches this video, but I've always liked to say that I knew my mom loved me, but I don't think she liked me very much. Because I wasn't, I was this dreamy-eyed.
Kevin, I love you, but I don't like you either. I mean, come on, man, let's be honest. I love you, I just don't like you.
I loved comic books and cartoons and action figures and in science fiction, and my nose was always in a book, and I wanted to write, and I don't think she thought that was a waste of time. So that relationship there between the father, Brian Ellison, and his stepmom, yeah, that is, and that's how fiction works, right? We can't take our lives exactly as they are and turn them into fiction. But we can mine those feelings and make those part of the story. And that's definitely where that comes from, yeah.
I do have one last question for you. There's a recurring...
Sorry.
Down the house here. Yeah, there's a recurring object in here, so I'm kind of curious with this. That's the 7-Up bottle, the old 7-Up bottle. Was there any significance to it, or did it just seem like a cool idea?
Be right back.
He's still recording.
Ran away.
We're okay on.
So,
It's on my way from it.
Kevin, we can hear you peeing.
Nope. So, when I was a kid, my great-grandmother always used to give us like back in the 80s, the old-fashioned soda bottles were still being made. They were still being bottled. So my great-grandmother would always give us a old-fashioned soda bottle whenever she came and visited us. And they were just so, like, the commercial soda bottles that you bought in the gas station. By the way, soda tastes better in glass, and I will never back off that. But the old fashioned soda bottles are just they look so much better. Okay, so I became obsessed over the years with collecting old fashioned soda bottles. I take walks.
For my Pepsi Cola.
Yep, I go on lots of walks. And I've got this is a Pepsi Cola bottle. I've got like Mountain Dew bottles. I've got actually several of these Pepsi Cola bottles. I won't run across the room for more of these. So I've always loved old soda bottles. Now the 7-Up bottle. There is a novel. We had some technical difficulties. This is just part of living in social distancing. So Chuck was asking me about the soda bottles, and I explained that I find a lot of soda bottles along the road. I've always loved old-fashioned soda bottles, and I have a collection of them here in the Horror Cave. But the 7-Up bottle has a real specific origin. When I was in 8th grade, I discovered a novel that has nothing to do with horror. It's called The Moves Make the Man by Bruce Brooks. And it's about, it's a basketball novel, but it's also about racism and prejudice. It takes place in the 60s about this black boy who he has to go to an all-white school because of the redistricting, and he develops a relationship with a white boy, and he teaches him basketball and all that sort of stuff. But they talked about the 7-Up bottles in that novel, and I always just thought it was so cool. I had never seen one like that before. It was they described the 7-Up bottle as being, it looked really psychedelic and it looked weird, and it had people on the side that were swimming up in the bubbles, and had a phrase on it that said, "You like it, it likes you." And I just loved that because at the time that I was writing Mystery Road, I had never found that bottle. I'd done a lot of walking. I found mostly Pepsi bottles. I found some Heinz root beer bottles. I found old Sprite bottles and Mountain Dew bottles. I'd even found some like Schlitz beer cans, but I'd never found the 7-Up bottle. But I just I Googled it and looked at the label, and I just put that in Mystery Road because I loved it so much. Not too long after Cemetery Dance accepted Mystery Road, I found, and it's going to be backwards, I found the 7-Up bottle at a thrift store that actually says, "You like it, it likes you." It does not have the psychedelic people swimming up in the side in the bubbles, which I was really disappointed in. But I was really happy to find that. So I just love the old school soda bottles, and that definitely made its way into Mystery Road. Now, Chuck, you were going to ask another question.
Yeah, the Anna Marie LaPierre is a major character, obviously, in the story. Where did that inspiration come from? What's the connection there with her as a character? Because obviously he has there's an attraction that's there in more than one ways, I will say though. But there's an emotional and physical attraction to her. Where did the inspiration come from for her?
So I think the physical attraction just comes from the fact that he's a 14-year-old boy, and now again, yes, Tom, I know you're Catholic, but
What the hell? He calls it out over and over again.
Let me build up to this.
Tom, we love you for who you are.
Okay, I'm going to say this. Catholics have a much better handle on basic... I'm just going to go out and say this. Catholics have a way better handle on human beings just being human beings than Protestants have had historically. And knowing that I have a Christian background, I'm writing this story, and I'm like, okay, he's a 14-year-old boy. This woman's holding a shotgun at him. But she's got nice boobs. He's probably going to notice that, because that's what boys do. And that was one of the reasons why I never submitted my work to Christian or evangelical Christian markets, because they have such a strict, if your character is a good character, they will not do this, they will not do that, they will not do this. And I'm writing this thinking, all right, dude, I mean, what else do 14-year-old boys think about? Well, they think about boobs a lot, because they're 14-year-old boys. They just do. Some of us who are 35-year-old, 40-year-old teachers still think about boobs. I'm not saying that about Tom. But, you know, but 14-year-old boys, they think about boobs. So there was that. I just wanted him to be a 14-year-old boy. He's not a pervert. He's not gross and weird. He's a 14-year-old boy when 14-year-old boys are like, wow, those are boobs. The emotional connection is that realization that this person represents something of your parents' past that you're not aware of. When he realizes that Anne-Marie LaPierre is a window into his father's life that before he had never seen, that becomes very powerful. And again, on the rare chance that my father actually watches this, I think all of us as kids, our parents, thinking of our parents as kids, it's a really foreign concept for us, you know. And some parents, I think, are more reticent than others to share their childhood experiences. And I wouldn't say that my father has been reticent in sharing that. I think a good reason. He was a little bit of a hellion at one point, far more than I ever was. So I think he's always been concerned that he doesn't want to share those stories and think that they were glamorous so that I would, you know, follow in his footsteps. But I think any child is very, very curious about what were my parents like as kids. So Anne-Marie LaPierre becomes this window of this whole part of his father's life that he's just never been privy to. And that's where I think the emotional connection comes from.
That's very strong of you, Kevin. I mean, my father told me about times when the kids were conceived, and I never asked him to. It was really just, I mean, when the old 1970s Kojak series was used, and I mean, my own was just, they pulled over the side of Route 17, and there I came.